Have you ever heard of the show called The Loud House? It's a series where a middle child, Lincoln Loud, has to survive in a family of 10 sisters. Yeah, that show. Well, what if I told you that I found an unreleased dark episode? It happened to me a few days before writing this. It's a bit of a long story. I was surfing the web and came across a website of salvaged media known as Digital Fossils. It was a website that carried strange, lost pieces of media that were either phone calls, security footage, images, deleted scenes of movies, etc. I had an interest in strange, lost pieces of media, so I was curious enough to check out the website. The links were ordered as fossil blank and then followed by the uppercase word or short, paraphrased in a few numbers. These words or phrases were sometimes nonsensical and unrelated to the website entry, and sometimes they made sense. For example, fossil dog 807, fossil help 9482, and fossil don't look 370. Some of the entries of the websites were slightly disturbing. For example, a recording of a cat playing with a dead bird or a news report of a child going missing on an abandoned playground. I don't know how the website recovered these pieces of lost media, but it had almost everything it could get its hands on. However, I stayed silent about that. I didn't work on the website anyway. However, as I scrolled down after seeing some entries, I found something that caught my eye. Fossil Loud 11. It was rather interesting. It had a word that reminded me of the ones from earlier that were randomized, but it had 11 after it. It reminded me of Lincoln Loud, the same 11-year-old boy from the show I just talked about earlier. I clicked on that link and saw the description of the entry. The description said as followed. This is a lost episode of The Loud House, which is entitled as Enough is Enough. It was meant to be the finale of the third season, but scrapped after its production was done. Chris will be planning another season 3 finale at the moment. However, this replacement is reasonable. This episode was lost for being too disturbing and dark for the series. If you're the fan of The Loud House, we must advise you that this is no joke. Viewer discretion is advised. I was curious. I wondered why this would be, for a show like The Loud House to have such an episode like this. So after I downloaded it, it started the episode. When the episode started, the usual intro played. Nothing was wrong so far. However, in the end, nobody went to the couch to watch the TV. It didn't act like they were all there, and it even acted like it was all there as well. So Lily's poo-poo wasn't present. Another thing that was wrong was that the ending logo was tainted with the color of pastel red instead of orange. The website wasn't joking around. There was definitely something wrong with this episode. The title card had a black background with white fog flowing across the left of it, with centered text that read, "Enough is enough." The bottom bubbles below showed that who made the episode as well, which was the same as the first two seasons. The music was a low rumbling noise that was a little ambient, sometimes you may hear in a horror game. The episode began with the outside view of the house, as it sometimes did. The music was absent, like the beginning of Brawl in the Family, and it cut to Lincoln watching the television, instead of playing video games like he usually does. He was just chilling. Don't you just hate living with 10 sisters? Well, sometimes I do, he said. I saw that his smile turned upside down. But on rare occasions, I do go a little far. I wish they would just leave me alone, but I can't hurt them. They're my siblings. I want to love them, but their things that they do are like a setback to me. Lincoln here sounded a little bit more serious than normal. Hey, bro, Luann said as she appeared next to Lincoln in the next shot. What did the platypus say before leaving the bar? Put it on my bill. Lincoln frowned as she laughed. Yeah, Luann, pretty fun. Do you want to smell my flower? I'm not falling for... Luann's flower then sprayed water on Lincoln's face before he could finish, when he was saying, Okay, Luann, that's... Do you want some of my banana cream pie? Luann said before slamming it onto Lincoln's face. I wondered why the description said that the episode was too dark. Luann was making so many jokes that it made the episode more stupid than graphic. Lincoln facepalmed in dissatisfaction. Stop, Luann, you're not funny. What do you call a boy who's completely white? A flower boy. Luann laughed for a bit. But then 1 shot later, Lincoln slid his hand down his face, revealing his angry eyes. Enough is enough! Lincoln said furiously as he grabbed Luann by her shoulders. Whoa, nice grip, bro. You should work out in the gym. Luann laughed at her little joke. Then something happened. It took me back to the shot of Lincoln. It felt as if I had been hit by a fucking train. Just after Luann had laughed at her little joke, Lincoln slammed her head against the wall, bruising her and knocking her out. A low ambient tune played in the background. Lincoln gasped and stared at the crack in Luann's head, and then at her purple, bruised, unconscious body. He looked at his hands in fear. What have I done? I've never done something like this before. He looked back at Luann. But this made me feel so alive. For some reason, I never felt this good in a while. I know just what to do. It cut to black for about 3 seconds, transitioning to Lori texting on her phone, possibly to Bobby. Hey Lori, can you drive me to the comic store? Just do it yourself or get your mom, Lincoln. Lori left the room, when I assumed was to go to the bathroom, and Lincoln looked at her phone when she left inside, glaring as he planned his next wipeout. One shot later, Lori was walking down her room when, Lincoln, let go of my phone right now! Lori was hit on the head by her phone. As it broke, it shattered the glass. Lincoln walked over to her body and looked down at her. This is for smashing my VR console, teenage brat! Lincoln said with silent anger as it cut to Lori's lifeless body. Her phone was shattered, with bits of glass scattered around her face, being cut around in some places. She was bleeding across her face where she was cut. I was shocked to see the middle child go on such a killing spree like this. Why was this made? I thought to myself. It cut to black yet again, to change to a different scene, taking place in the backyard. Hey Lincoln, wanna wrestle? Sure, why not, Lynn? I bet I'll beat you this time. I knew this was no wrestling match, but I kept on watching to see where it would go. As Lincoln was wrestling with Lynn, he got behind her, and shortly after it cut to a close-up of Lynn's eyes. Come at me, bro! Lynn's anticipation was cut short when she not only widened her eyes, but gagged. I knew something went wrong. The dark tune grew louder. It cut away from the close-up to show Lincoln choking her 13-year-old sister from behind. Not only that, but the animation quality changed to a style very similar to that of King of the Hill. It looked so shocking that it didn't look as cartoony as before. I watched as Lynn gripped her brother's hands to break free. It was useless for her to escape. It cut to Lynn's point of view as she turned around, face to face with Lincoln. This is when I felt like I was going to faint. Lincoln's face looked menacing, cold, and possessed at this point. His eyes were bloodshot, his pupil was larger, and his skin was a tad bit darker. The animation at this point went back to its normal style, but his face was still highly detailed. In Lincoln's pupils was a reflection of the choking sister Lynn. I watched in shock as her vision went blurry, and her eyelids opened and closed. By the time she had her eyes shut, she was done. It was over for her. The gloomy music stopped. The next shot went to Lincoln sitting in the dark, with Lynn's body next to him. A different low tune played. Lincoln looked at his sibling's body with a pleasured look on his face. After 30 seconds, he spoke. Sleep tight, Lynn. You're free. I got chills as he said those words. Lincoln had snapped. He was no longer the man with the plan. He was now a corrupt soul. I wonder who's next for the axe, he wondered to himself as he looked up. With a planning smile, thoughts came to him. The video suddenly turned black and white. Lincoln pulled Lenny closer to him with a pair of scissors in his hands and glared at Lola with a bat in his hand. He was seen smashing Luann's guitar in her face and was about to set Lucy on fire. And then cut to black afterwards. A line of white uppercase text spelled 1 week later, fading in after 5 seconds. It was clear that 1 week had passed. It was nighttime again when the text and black screen faded out. Lincoln was staring at the bodies of his now dead sisters, which were under his bed. To name a few of their fates, Lily choked on what I assume was a small toy, and Lola was cut in the face multiple times. I'm not going to get into the rest of the sisters, though. My job is done. All I need is one more. But who is it? He said, looking around. Yes, it must be me. There's something I must do, Lincoln said as he looked down. As it cut to black for 10 seconds, Lincoln was now seen hanging from the ceiling, his back turned against the camera. I felt bewildered. All the Loud siblings were dead, all because Lincoln had snapped, and it all built up to this moment. Lincoln had to kill himself in order to join his sisters. Well, not all of his sisters. Just after a silent 12 seconds, Luann slowly got out of Lincoln's bed and panted heavily. It was a relief that she didn't die. Like I said earlier, she was knocked out, not dead. Her wounds were still present, and she was a bit pale, and a bit more blood had dripped down her face, but not entirely. She looked at Lincoln and back at her sisters, which were now lifeless corpses. "This is no joke," Luann said softly as she witnessed her first mass murder. She stood for a moment before limping outside, possibly to tell the parents what happened. Afterwards, the camera panned slowly to show Lincoln's hanging body. It faded to black, indicating the end of the episode. The credits had an eerie ambient tune, and the background was the same white fog from the title card black background and moving left, but it lasted a bit longer. As the credits stopped, the screen went black, and an echoing high tune rang for about 12 seconds. It gave me the willies. Afterwards, the episode was finally over. Questions still rang throughout my head. Why was this made? What happened that led Chris Savino, the creator of the show, to make this? This episode had to be something to it. I just knew it had to. I tried doing some research on this certain episode, but nothing was found on this specific episode. I went to bed after spending 25 minutes of useless research, because no other website had anything of that episode. I still have some nightmares about that episode. Lincoln standing there, with his cold, angry, bloodshot eyes, and overly detailed face. He did nothing. He just watched me as I slept. I always turn on my lights after those nightmares happened. I didn't want him strangling me, slamming me against the wall, whatever he could do to end my life. I didn't go back to the digital fossils for a week because of that episode. That didn't mean that I was done with it, though. I just hoped that I would someday find about some info about the episode. Like, who suggested the idea for this episode? However, here was a real question. How did they get away with such an abysmal episode? And that, my little shadows, was the Loud House Enough is Enough, a Loud House Lost episode creepypasta. My final thoughts on the story? Okay. I'm about to say something that's likely going to be very unpopular, although some of you will probably agree with me. This story was absolute dog shit. I'm not joking when I say this, people. This story was just downright bad. Why did I ever narrate this story to begin with? I mean, why was this story so popular? That's a question I have. This story isn't anything new. It isn't anything interesting. It's just a bland cliche fest in the form of a Loud House Lost episode. I mean, at least for the episode and the ending. I mean, alright, maybe I'm being a little hard here, so let me actually kind of start off with the positive sides of this. The main positive side I can give is the beginning of this creepypasta. The kind of interesting and new way of finding these specific episodes in the form of lost media and fossils and things like that. Basically just something particularly simple but relatively believable when you look at it in a proper manner, in a proper way. So I'll give the story credit for that. I'll give it credit where credit is due and say that that was a very interesting startup. However, anything else after that was downright terrible. In fact, I would even go as so far to say that it's about as bland as all other many other Lost episode creepypastas are. And, why do I believe that? Well, for one, it's all extremely unbelievable here. the whole concept of Chris Savino or whoever making something like this being the final episode is something so many creepypastas have done in the past. It's not scary. It's not interesting. It's not funny. It's quite literally one of the stupidest things I have ever had the audacity to actually sit there and listen to. I mean, gonna be honest here. Gonna be very honest. The concept was interesting, so to speak, but the whole idea of Lincoln just sitting there and killing all of his sisters because, hey, these people annoy me. No! Just, look, no. Just no. It doesn't work. And I'm looking at it, and the only good thing I can really say besides from the beginning is the little photoshopped picture of, of Lori, having her phone cracked. And, speaking of that, let's actually get into the so-called deaths of all these characters. For one, who the hell dies after sitting there and getting their phone thrown at them? I mean, at the very most, if you would probably get a little knocked out from it, but come on, I'm looking at this photo and it's just so fucking stupid. And judging by most of it, some of these characters should have still been alive. How the hell do you die from a phone, quite literally, sitting there and smashing into your face? I mean, it's a small little rectangular piece of plastic. I have like 4 of them. It's a small thing of plastic, and even if you could throw something like that, it's not likely that glass would shatter anywhere, because that's not what these phones are made of. They are not made out of glass, people. They just aren't. I mean, they can shatter, yes, but they don't, like, explode into shards. I mean, unless a phone explodes. But even if that was the case, it still doesn't it's not logical in any form or in any way. I get it, it's a creepypasta. I get it that it's a fake story. And for anybody wondering, yes, this is fake. I really fucking hate having to hear people sit there and say, this is fake. Well, no fucking shit, Sherlock. Of course it's fake. It's a creepypasta. I hate that so much. I get that so many times in these... Okay. Getting back to the review. The episode was honestly probably one of the worst things I've ever read. I gotta be honest. And I've narrated this a few other times before. I mean, the whole idea, like I said, does not play well. Lincoln would never do such a thing, even if he was agitated. Now, it'd be one thing if he was going through all of this in months' time. That right there would be understandable. But I think the worst thing about this is the cringy dialogue. Oh my god, people. Like, sleep tight, Lynn, you're free. Like, why would Lincoln say that? It's so bad. It's so cliche. I mean, hell, it's not even a creepypasta cliche, yet it's still a cliche. I mean, the idea of, sleep tight. Or why? Why would you do that? Author, what was going on in your head when you made that? I'm being honest here. But I think, and it's like so many other ones, it's like, the next one must be me. And Lincoln hangs himself. Oh my god. It makes me wonder if this was actually more or less a rewrite of the story, what was it? Gone Girls. I already did a reboot of that one, so I'm not doing that ever again. But, of Gone Girls. And that was a story that was actually before Loud House Enough is Enough. I don't know why it was gone, but it was a pretty good story. I think this is where that whole thing kind of got its inspiration from before the original story got deleted. I mean, that sucks, but still. And, it makes me wonder to myself why I ever liked that story to begin with. I mean, there was nothing about it that was particularly interesting. There was nothing about it that was well done or well made. It was just, I mean, the grammar's good, don't get me wrong. It wasn't that difficult for me to narrate it. But the whole concept itself just doesn't play well. There's no good flow with the whole thing. Except with the beginning, and I'll even admit, at the end. But it just, like I said, the deaths were completely over the top. There was no reason for Lincoln to do the things that he did. And it just, honestly, the blood and a bit of the gore and the fucked up deaths and everything that happened, especially with Lily, It's not justified in any form or in any way. And that sucks. You know, Lincoln has to have an honest to God reason for why he does the thing that he does. Him killing all of his sisters is just no. Alright, so I think I'm pretty much done reviewing this, so I'm just going to go on ahead and say that this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you disagree with it, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of the story would have to be a 2 out of 10. It had a pretty good start up at the beginning, but the rest of the episode just fell flat so badly to the point where I question why this ever became popular to begin with. It wasn't really anything that new or original, and it was bland. Gonna be frank. Very, 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 very bland. Don't like it. But of course, that's all I have to say. What did you guys think about this story? Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys not? Also, what would you have personally done to help make the story a lot better? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. I'm the Shadow Reader. Thanks again for watching today's episode. And like always, roll the outro because I'm out. In fear and surprise as your eyes widen, your mouth goes dry with each battered breath. You try to scream, your mind begs to thee, glued to your computer screen. The killers they slash, the tapes burn and crash. The cartridge you bought will be your final haunt. The rituals of hate will seal your fate. The tears you shed will be from the fear-gripping horror-driven nightmarish gore-filled, terrorizing, hateful, burning, violent, rage-inducing, knife-slashing, blood-splattering, silent screams. Only time will tell if you will escape this online hell. Your horror-filled obsessions will come with its own regressions. Your pathetic screams will not be heeded in any way, because your nightmares will come at any day.